Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at a rather interesting all-in-one from Lenovo. This is their IdeaCentre Y910, and this is the entire computer here within this monitor. In fact, this is a gaming PC. It has a GTX 1070 underneath one of these panels in the back here, has 12 gigs of RAM, and is powered by an Intel Core i5-6500 processor, and of course, you can get other configurations as well, and it's upgradable. So we're going to see what this gaming all-in-one can do in just a second. But in the interest of full disclosure, I did want to mention that this is on loan from Lenovo. So when we're done reviewing this, it gets sent back to them. Nobody is paying for this review. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own, and no one is reviewing this content before it is posted. All right, so let's do a quick hardware overview, and then we will boot it up. We've got a 27-inch 2560 by 1440 display. It runs at 144 hertz with a 5 millisecond response rate, so not a bad gaming monitor that's built into this. As you'll see in a minute, you can also use it as a monitor too, so there's an HDMI input for having other devices flow through to the monitor, so you can plug in a Blu-ray player or something else to it if you wish. The one thing though is that it doesn't support G-Sync, which is an Nvidia technology to dynamically adjust the refresh rate of the monitor with the graphics card. There are many gaming monitors out now that do that, which make your gaming experience very smooth with minimal configuration. This is not one of those displays, so you'll need to do that yourself. It has a 128 gigabyte solid state drive. It also has a 1 terabyte spinning drive. Both are upgradable. I'll show you how to do that in a second. It's got 12 gigabytes of RAM, and you can upgrade that to 32 gigabytes. It is DDR4 2133 RAM on board, Core i5-6500 at 3.2 gigahertz, and this one is equipped with a GTX 1070 GPU. The price on it isn't bad. It's about $1,700 at Newegg right now, so a pretty decent price for a all-in-one. Just plug it in and go. Unfortunately, the keyboard that it comes with is kind of lousy here, as you can see, so you will probably want to get your own gaming keyboard and mouse to pair with it. There might be versions that do come with a nicer keyboard and mouse combo, but what you get in the box is a pretty basic configuration. And they packed a lot of stuff in here, including a little hanger for your headset when you're not using it, so you can put it on there. The speakers are in the front, but I would recommend getting a pair of headphones to hang on your hanger there, because it sounds okay, but it's a little muddied and flat to me. It's not the best sounding speakers out there, especially for gaming, so a headset might be the way to go with this. You've got a power switch here, of course, and this button will switch the monitor source, so you can switch between the internal computer or what you have plugged into its HDMI port on the back. There is a webcam on it, kind of a lame little thing here that pops up. I'm not too crazy about this. I guess to keep the bezels thin, they had to come up with some solution on the webcam. And you'll notice there are two cameras on here because it has some crazy Intel Connect thing that you can do like 3D motions with. And I tried it out. Honestly, I'm not all that crazy about it, so I could have done without it. But if you want to play around with their Intel motion thing, you can do that on here because it's got the camera for it. But it's more of a Connect thing, which I don't think did very well with gamers or anyone out in the marketplace, but you can play around with it and decide for yourself. You've got 4 USB 3.0 slots over here, a card reader. You also have a headset microphone adapter here and a separate microphone port there for analog devices. You got a DVD burner here on the side too. Not a Blu-ray player, unfortunately, but it does have an optical drive in here, so if you're buying games on physical media, you can get them installed on that. And then on the back, you just got a couple of ports here. We have a HDMI input, an HDMI output. You have another 2 USB ports here and a gigabit Ethernet jack as well. Now what's cool is that you can swap out most of the components on this computer with the exception of the CPU. So choose your i5 or your i7 carefully because you will be melded to it for life on this thing, but a lot of other stuff can be replaced. And the way you get at the devices in here is just by popping out these panels here. So you push down the little Y here, this panel will very easily slide off, and on this side we have the storage. So we've got our spinning 1 terabyte drive here that can be easily swapped out. You also have your M2 SSD drive here too, which can also be swapped out. So you just take off those panels, get a screwdriver out, and you can upgrade your storage very easily. So you might want to just configure this with the lowest amount of storage you can get and then upgrade it after you get it. On the other side is the graphics processor and the memory. So we've got our GTX 1070 in here. You can see it accommodates a full height GPU, so you have some good options, I think, for upgrading in the future. And then over here you've got your system memory that you can easily swap out as well. So I really like the fact that they made this very simple to get at, toolless entry here for getting that GPU out, and a really nice design overall. Now, I do like the fact that there's no power brick. You just plug in a power cord and the power supply is integrated into the post here, which is really cool. You cannot move the monitor up and down, though, so you can only do a tilt angle to it. So you'll probably want to get your chair adjusted and your desk adjusted to the right height because you cannot adjust the height of the display. Now, before we powered it up, I did want to show you how the monitor works on it because you can use the monitor without actually having the computer on. So what I'm going to do here is just plug in an HDMI output from this Chromebook here, and you'll see here in a second that it will appear on screen here without the computer being on at all. So I thought that was a pretty nice feature so you can watch movies and whatnot without turning on the display. There will be a fan running though, even when the computer is off. It's not that loud, but it's certainly going to be louder than what you might get with a typical display, which doesn't usually have a fan on board. All right, so let's see how this thing performs. We're going to start off with some Rocket League and then look at a few other things too. Now, this has the GTX 1070 built in. You can spend more money and get an i7 and a 1080. So this is kind of the entry point of this model line, which is good. So this is the minimum that you'll experience. You'll get better performance if you pack more in. I'm going with the Nvidia GeForce Experience defaults for everything you're about to see here, but I will show you what we've got configured here for the game here. So we'll let this run real quick and we'll get a feel for how this goes. Now you can, of course, hook this up to an external display if you want. And remember that HDMI input that I showed you before is just an input for the monitor. It will not allow you to use this as a capture device. But as you can see in the upper left-hand corner there, we are well above 144 frames per second on this. So this is where you might want to put VSync on to make sure you don't get any tearing of the screen. But it looks great. It handles really well, and you'll get decent performance here on Rocket League with the settings cranked up at the display's native resolution. You can run the display, of course, at lower resolutions, but it will look cloudier. It won't look as sharp. So one of the things with these displays is you really want to try to run them at their native resolution as much as possible. Let's take a look now at Grand Theft Auto 5. All right, so here we are tooling around in Grand Theft Auto 5. I've got it configured with the GeForce Experience suggested settings for the native display resolution here. So this is running at 2560 by 1440, and I'm getting frame rates anywhere from like 45 to 70 depending on the complexity of the scene. So this game is always a very challenging one given its complexity, so you will certainly see a variation in performance. But of course, if you went up to a faster GPU or reduce the display resolution or tweak some of the image quality settings, you can certainly get a higher frame rate, but again, not bad for something that is running on an all-in-one PC. I also wanted to check out the new version of Doom, which is a very fast game, and see how well it could do with this hardware here. So the Nvidia Experience recommended a pretty crazy configuration, and that is what we're running right now. And unfortunately, the overlay stopped working, but up in the left-hand corner, very tiny, is the frame rate. We're getting about 100 frames per second, give or take, in this scene right now. So it really is performing very, very well, and where you would expect a gaming PC to perform with this processor and GPU. So I think this is going to be a really good gaming experience, actually, for a whole bunch of AAA titles that are out there. And of course, you can always upgrade that graphics processor over time. And I also ran some benchmark tests on it, including the TimeSpy DirectX 12 test from 3D Mark, and we got a score of 5,051 on that test. And you can see what that compares to with my gaming PC that has a GTX 1080 built in. So I think if this computer had a 1080 card in it, it would actually perform on par with my big tower over there. So it really did hold up quite well. I was also surprised that the fan noise did not get all that loud even when I had these games running and these benchmarks running. It really stayed at a very consistent sound level. It didn't get too hot, and I didn't see any performance degradation as I was pushing it harder. So they have some decent cooling on here, and I think overall it will be a good performer. I also ran the Firestrike test, and this was interesting because this was a test that I ran on my gaming PC a year ago when it had a prior generation Nvidia chip, the GTX 970, and you can see on that test we got a score of 12,343 versus 10,397 on that same computer with a slower graphics card. So you can definitely see the difference here that you're getting out of this GPU difference with these devices. So if you had, again, a higher end GPU on here with an i7 processor, I think it will perform as well as a larger tower unit might, but you're getting something very conveniently packaged here in what is essentially really just a little bit of a larger display than you would normally get with a monitor by itself. So it's not adding all that much more bulk. Very convenient, I think, for college students and for professionals that want something that doesn't take up a lot of room in a cubicle or something like that. This is actually a pretty good choice because it performs very well. I don't see any real performance sacrifices being made, and you can do things like video editing and CAD work and development. Everything you would do on a higher-end PC, you can do on this one because it is a high-end PC, and I think for the $1,600 or $1,700 price tag, this is not a bad deal here, and you get a lot of performance in a very convenient package. My only gripes is the lack of G-Sync, which I think would have been better for gamers, especially to make configuration a little easier, and the sound quality out of the speakers could be a little better too, but beyond that, I think it's a very good value and definitely something worth considering. This is Lon.TV, thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporter Eric. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/S.